My name is Robin Mukherjee. I'm a student in the School of Philosophy and Economic Science. Good morning. I'll begin with a text which I'm sure many of you will already know. It's by Thomas Traherne from his book Centuries of Meditation. And let me just pop that up there. It's quite long, but I'll read it. The corn was orient and immortal wheat, which never should be reaped, nor was ever sown. I thought it had stood from everlasting to everlasting. The dust and stones of the street were as precious as gold. The gates were at first the end of the world. The green trees, when I saw them first through one of the gates, transported and ravished me. Their sweetness and unusual beauty made my heart to leap, and almost mad with ecstasy. They were such strange and wonderful things. The men, oh, what venerable and reverend creatures did the aged seem, immortal cherubims, and the young men, glittering and sparkling angels, and maids, strange seraphic pieces of life and beauty. Boys and girls tumbling in the street and playing were moving jewels. I knew not that they were born or should die, but all things abided eternally as they were in their proper places. Eternity was manifest in the light of the day, and something infinite behind everything appeared, which talked with my expectation and moved my desire. The city seemed to stand in Eden or to be built in heaven. The streets were mine, the temple was mine, the people were mine. Their clothes and gold and silver were mine, as much as their sparkling eyes, fair skins and ruddy faces. The skies were mine, and so were the sun and moon and stars, and all the world was mine. And I, the only spectator and enjoyer of it. I knew no churlish proprieties, nor bounds, nor divisions, but all proprieties and divisions were mine, all treasures and the possessors of them. I could leave it there, really, could I? But look, even if we don't have the language to describe a moment like that quite so beautifully, I'm sure what he writes of is recognizable in some measure to all of us. Just to see the world through the eyes of a child, we might remember, as Traherne remembered, how that might be. There's a recollection I have of my daughter when she was a munchkin. She was tiny, just about walking, and we took her to a park with a lake and a cafe. She immediately wanted to look at the water, so we stood there for a while and a while longer until I began to feel a touch of impatience, thinking this is just a bit of lake by the car park and there's so much more to see, not to mention a flat white with my name on it. And I suddenly realized that she'd never seen this before, never here. Never this. Sunlight dancing on the water surface, glancing off the pebbles below in brilliant shards. And then quite suddenly I saw it myself, as if for the first time. So I've reflected on this moment often, and I've often told it, and I was reminded of it by that passage from Traherne. And my question is, if we don't see something as if for the first time, then what are we seeing, if we see it at all? So this connection with the simple, the innocent vision is obviously a perennial concern of poetry. It's not the only concern, but it informs so much of Yeats and Wordsworth, Thoreau and Blake. Of course, for him, childhood forever remains an imminent possibility. It's not that we're gifted with a particular kind of vision in childhood, they would say, I think, but that we obscure it as we get older by what Blake called mind-forged manacles and Traherne called men's conceits and customs, or the devices of this world, from which he says we need to disentangle ourselves. Just to be clear, Traherne didn't consider the world to be a problem. He said, if I can get this here, a little quote, to condemn the world and to enjoy the world are things contrary to each other. How then can we condemn the world which we are born to enjoy? But the world, there are in a way two worlds. The world as it is, and nature as it is, and the jaded, cynical, complex, dulled world seen through the haze of our preoccupations. Now, if you don't know, you might by now be wondering if Traherne was an Augustan poet. drinking tea with Pope or Dryden, or perhaps a romantic, a friend of Coleridge or Shelley, or a society poet entertaining the Regency court. He was, in fact, a vicar from Teddington, a chaplain, who had published just one small book in his life, a student paper he'd written years ago, possibly his MA thesis. And when I say his life, it was actually published just before his death, which was in 1674. Just to confuse you for a moment, the first major publication of his work, Centuries of Meditation, the part of which we've just heard, came out in 1908, 200 years after he died. Another tranche of his work was published in 1964, and then a bit more in 1997. Until the publication of Centuries, he was pretty much unknown to the literary world. After that, of course, he was significant. C.S. Lewis said that Centuries was, quote, almost the most beautiful book in the English language, presumably, I don't know, after Shakespeare, the Bible, and the works of C.S. Lewis. So what happened? He was a great writer. He obviously didn't have an agent. Was he a sort of innocent and accidental genius, a literary equivalent of a Maud Lewis in the art world? The answer is actually, I think, more interesting and illuminating than that. His origins were modest. He was born in Hereford in Wales. His father was either a shoemaker by some accounts or a publican, according to others, and you can pick whichever you think is the most romantic. I like them both. He went to grammar school, then Brasenose College, Oxford, and it was there that he wrote the first piece that was published just after his, or just before his death, a polemic, which you might call a critique of Catholicism. He took a living in the church back home in Wales. He was ordained as a priest, moving to Teddington, where he served as a private chaplain to the Lord Keeper of the Great Seal, to King Charles II. And there he remained until his death. Posthumously, there were a couple of other minor works, nothing which caused a stir or were even especially noticed. Because so little is known about him, one has to pare through the speculation. But it seems that he could have been a high flyer, considering the context, the brasenose scholars that he associated with in ecclesiastical circles, had he not chosen the simple life. It's only by chance that we know anything of him at all. The manuscript of Centuries, so celebrated now, was found in a basket of books about to be thrown away. Another of his manuscripts was rescued from a pile of rubbish that was being burned. A scholar popping into the library in Lambeth Palace to shelter from the rain browsed through a pile of unattributed writings, was intrigued by one of them, and eventually managed to identify it as Traherne's. Among these finds, these chance encounters, were notebooks in which Traherne had meticulously transcribed passages from Neoplatonic philosophy, which for many Traherne scholars makes a huge amount of sense. He has been called a pantheist or even a pagan at heart, but a lot of what he wrote is consistent with Neoplatonic thought, a key precept of which is the power of memory. Not so much a memory in the sense of leafing through an album of old photographs, but that eminent sense of freedom, the unlimited, that is paradoxically both obvious and unnoticed. At the very beginning of Centuries, Traherne sets out what he intends to write about. Things strange, yet common, incredible, yet known, most high, yet plain, infinitely profitable, but not esteemed, such as the light shimmering across the waters of a lake, dancing on pebbles just beneath the surface, that you might miss if all you're thinking about is a coffee and a croissant, although let's not dismiss the joys of those. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to suggest that Traherne's choice to live simply was entirely consistent with his philosophical works. He wrote this: "The world is a mirror of infinite beauty, yet no man sees it. It is a temple of majesty, yet no man regards it. It is a region of light and peace. Did men not disquiet it?" And of course, this could be mistaken for a lament for something lost if we fail to recall that for Traherne, that vision is always there in the life that has not been, as he rather beautifully puts it, disquieted. So I'll leave it there. let's go back to that screen. Do not disquiet the day. Do not disquiet the moment. Philosophy Live is here every Friday. Classes in philosophy and economics have started, but you can still enroll. It's not too late. Take a look at the website for a course that's near you, and there are online courses too. Thank you very much for your company this morning. Have a great day and a very good weekend. Well, that's the end of the presentation. We have a question. Do you know what, Nicholas? It depends what you mean by mine. And, you know, this cup is mine. I love this cup. But it belongs to me as an individual, as a limited creature. What Traherne is doing by associating the sense of possessiveness with the universal is surrendering the, if you like to use kind of technical terminology, his individual ego, you know, for a sense of unlimitedness. I mean, it's that simple. So mine, the repetition of mine, I think, is deliberate. I mean, I only had 10 minutes to talk about it. It was very little time. But I think his language is immaculate and precise and very beautiful. And he knows what he's doing as a writer and as a poet. And so when he says mine repetitively, he's bringing us to the point where we ask exactly that question. What does it mean, me and mine? But actually, my talk is finished. So we better leave it there. Everyone needs to get on with their day. Like I say, have a great day. Have a lovely weekend. I'll close the stream here, but do keep your comments coming because I'll look again. I'll look back later. Cheerio.